What is up, IF Warriors? It's your boy Edward V, and today we're going to talk about walking versus running. Which one is better for fat loss and which one is better just overall? I'm going to go ahead and highlight some key studies that look into this direct competition between running and walking. And I'm going to go ahead and break it down in this video. Stay tuned. Alright guys, quickly before we start, this video is brought to you by yours truly, Fledge Fitness and the Fledge Fitness Jump Rope. If you haven't gotten yours yet, what are you waiting for? With an ergonomic design, aluminum handle, and swivel design, you can't go wrong with the Fledge Fitness Jump Rope. You can click on the top right hand corner of this video or down in the description box below. Now let's go ahead and jump right into the video. So this is a very common debate. A lot of people have shifted from running to walking, and this shift has happened over time as people hear about low steady state cardio versus high intensity cardio, anaerobic versus aerobic. Those elements start to come into play, which made a lot of people kind of migrate from running to walking. But I'm going to look at studies that look into the actual competition between what it's like to run versus what it's like to walk and how beneficial that is for you. There are studies that show that running has negative impacts for you in health. If you're a chronic runner, if you're consistently running all the time. However, please keep in mind that these are cohort studies and they're not directly comparing the two within a controlled environment. It's observational. They're looking at data that was given to someone, given to doctors about specific running groups, but because they're cohort observational, we can't control for variables of like what they're doing and what their habits are and what their diet is. And even with those variables possibly being there, they have seen similarities between walking and running in terms of cardiometabolic health. Even if the cohort shows slightly higher cholesterol, that is probably most likely due to poor diet. So you'll see a lot of articles say, well, these studies show that running is worse than walking because of the cardiometabolic health and the consistent damage to the tissues. But they also don't tell you that there's a running sweet spot. They're only looking at chronic runners who run aggressively over and over and over every day, miles per day. They're looking at a moderate walker versus an aggressively high intensity runner. You can't really compare those two because it's too far away from where they are. What if you're just thinking of running versus walking? You're not going to run as if you're training for a marathon every single day. You might just want to run casually. And there is a sweet spot of running where those possible negative health benefits will not affect you. A much larger cohort study looking at over 30 years, 52,000 people determined that the sweet spot was 5 to 19 miles per week at a pace of 6 to 7 miles per hour spread out throughout the week within 3 to 4 days. That's the sweet spot. If you're running within that time frame and you're not going too high above that intensity, you are in a very sweet spot where you're not going to see these exponential increase in cardiometabolic health risks. Now, in terms of physical, like joint pain risk, those things, we have to give it to walking because the negligible risk injury is about 20% or higher with running, and it's like 4% with walking. Is very, very low. And this over time can create chronic injury, pain in your knees and your back, in your legs, etc. So it's more likely that you can walk for a longer period of time throughout your life than that you can run because of that negligible risk injury. But when it comes down to the body fat itself, so we have the cohort studies that we understand with running and walking. We've addressed the sweet spot and the negligible risk injury, which is higher for running than it is for walking. But what about body fat burning? Now, this is the thing that has migrated people from running to walking. The thing with this is that they're looking at one kind of one element to the entire equation. They're looking at the aerobic exercise, which is you have enough oxygen during your cardio session, versus anaerobic, where you don't have enough oxygen during the cardio session. And what happens because of the two different things is that when you're anaerobic, your body needs quick energy because it does not have the allotted amount of oxygen, so it burns through carbohydrate, because carbohydrate or glucose or glycogen is quick energy that your body can use very, very fast, while body fat is slow energy that your body will use if it's in a steady state and it doesn't need the quick energy from the glycogen stores. So because of this, many people believe that walking burns more fat than running. Now, in a vacuum, isolated, yes, walking technically burns more fat in an isolated measurement of what's actually going on biologically with your body. But taking into account the amount of calorie burning that's happening and the substrate switching between glucose and fat when you're running, you still end up burning way more fat and calories running than you do walking. So if you walk 30 minutes and run 30 minutes, you'll burn way more calories, way more fat, and burn through your glycogen stores with running as opposed to walking. You will have to walk great distances and walk for longer periods of time to make up for 30 minutes of running. Now, that might not be a bad thing, because touching on the negligible injury risk, if you're an older person or if you're sedentary, if you're not used to cardio, walking is a better route to go than running, because even if you have medical conditions with joint pain or even joint replacement or things like that, you might want to walk, because running is going to be taxing on your body. And you'll still be burning fat, just not as fast as running. And they've done a very good head-to-head study looking at this. They looked at normal weight walkers, they looked at overweight walkers, and they looked at marathon runners. And when mass was equated, so the mass of each person, marathon runners burn more body fat, while all of the fat-free mass, which is the lean tissue, all of that stayed the same across all three groups. And this was seen in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research by Mark Lofton and colleagues. They looked at all three groups, and it's rare that they even have the overweight group in there, because before this study, it would always be either normal weight walkers versus marathon runners, or normal weight walkers versus overweight walkers. But to have all three groups compare it against each other, that was unique for this study when it was released. They used a regression formula. They did a base by mass, a base by composition, by body composition, and how much energy expenditure and body fat was lost. And even when all of that is taken into account, when all of that is put into the formula, the marathon runners, not running a marathon, they were just marathon runners doing the same distance and time as those who were walking. It was a controlled study, not a cohort study or an observational study. It was a controlled study. Now, I'm not saying that walking is better than running or running is better than walking. You have to just understand the two things that you're getting with each. Walking can be done casually multiple times a day, which can help compensate for the fact that running is only done purposefully. So you can only purposefully run, as opposed to walking. You're constantly walking throughout the day, and you can create moments of incidental walking where you can walk more than what you normally would be walking. For example, you can park further in the parking lot to a mall so you can walk that distance, or you can take the steps instead of the elevator. Things like that, which adds more steps to your day, that can try to compensate for the fact that running in a vacuum, isolated, burns more body fat and calories overall. But keep in mind, when you run, you also walk. But walking is much, much, much safer than running. I hope this video has helped you understand the benefits of the two, and why someone would choose one over the other. As always, I want to thank my patrons from my Patreon. I'm going to go ahead and put their names right up here. And as always, guys, I'll see you on Sunday for another FAQ. Peace!